Beloved, open your eyes and behold, the sun rises, and you breathe the breath of life. Did you earn it? No, it is the gift of the Almighty, unmerited, unmeasured, and unstoppable. Every blessing is a signpost of His love. The air you breathe, the light that touches your skin, the pulse in your veins, these are not just facts of biology or coincidences of nature. They are declarations from heaven. Each one whispers, "You are loved." The Almighty, the maker of heaven and earth, the one who measures the waters in the hollow of His hand, has turned His gaze toward you. And in that gaze is blessing. Before you spoke your first word, He had already spoken over you. It is good. Before you took your first step, He had already ordered your path. The blessing begins before your awareness, before your striving, before your performance. It is not earned, it is given, and not sparingly, but lavishly, for love never gives in halves. Love gives all. From the moment of your waking to the closing of your eyes at night, you are surrounded by signs of His affection, the way the sunlight falls through the trees, the laughter that bubbles up from a place you didn't know was still alive, the word of encouragement that arrives at just the right moment. The strength to get out of bed when grief has tried to tie you down. These are not accidents. They are divine fingerprints. Love leaves traces, and His love leaves trails of blessing across your days. Think of the manna in the wilderness. It did not fall in abundance once a year. It came with the dawn every day like clockwork from heaven. Why? Because God was teaching His people not only how to survive, but how to recognize His faithfulness in the details. He didn't rain down banquets. He gave what was needed. And in that daily gift was a deeper message. I see you. I care for you. I am with you. Every time you wake up with new strength, it is a blessing. Every time peace stills your heart when it should be raging, it is a blessing. Every time a closed door redirects you to something better, though you may not yet understand, it is a blessing. The blessings of God are not only in the extravagant, they are in the ordinary made sacred by His touch. There is a Hebrew phrase, "Achized vemet," loving kindness and truth. That is the nature of His love, and that is the nature of His blessings. They are not random, not hollow. They are acts of cheesed, covenant kindness. Every time the rain falls to water the earth, every time a child's cry is answered with comfort, every time a sinner finds mercy, it is cheesed at work. It is the heart of the Father revealing itself again and again. You may think blessings are what come after your prayers are answered, after the breakthrough, after the miracle. But in truth, the blessings are already here. You do not wait for the love of God. You walk in it. His blessing preceded it, and His blessing follows it. When you look at your life through the eyes of faith, you begin to see a pattern. The protection you didn't know was happening. The danger you avoided without seeing it. The people who crossed your path at just the right time. The opportunities you stumbled into, not by chance but by the orchestration of a loving hand. These are not mere life events. They are moments of divine love expressed in tangible form. Even the trials, when filtered through the lens of grace, become disguised blessings. The night seasons that teach you how to hope. The losses that lead to deeper intimacy. The delays that refine your trust. You may not always recognize them as blessings at the time, but hindsight reveals what love was doing all along. For the shepherd does not always lead through green pastures. Sometimes He walks you through the valley so you can learn the sound of His voice. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not just making it through life. You are being carried, guided, and loved in every moment. Every blessing you receive is not just provision. It is proclamation. It is heaven's declaration that you are known and treasured by the King of Kings. Blessings are not the currency of performance. They are the language of love. And so when you wake up tomorrow, do not wait for something grand to call it a blessing. Look around. Look closely. Listen for the whisper. Feel the sun. Breathe the air. Take the next step. It is all a signpost. It is all speaking. It is all love. God's blessings are hidden in both the light and the dark. We are taught to associate blessing with joy, with abundance, with open doors, and answered prayers. We call the mountaintop good, the sunlight holy, the breakthrough divine. But the truth of God is deeper than that, more mysterious than our definitions allow. The light is easy to bless, but the shadow also carries His fingerprints. The night is not absent of Him. The darkness is not void of His voice. He was in the whirlwind with Job. He was in the belly of the great fish with Jonah. He was in the fire with the 3 Hebrew boys. And He is still present in the places we call silent, barren, and broken. When the heavens seem brass and prayers echo back like unanswered calls, it is not because God has withdrawn his hand. Sometimes the silence is the language of sanctification. Sometimes the darkness is the soil where the deepest roots grow. The seed must fall into the ground and be hidden before it bursts forth into new life. There is blessing in the burial. There is blessing in the burial. There is blessing in the waiting. There is blessing in the dark that cannot be seen, only trusted. The Hebrew scriptures do not shy away from this mystery. They speak of God forming light and creating darkness, making peace and creating calamity. He is not the author of evil, but he is sovereign even in the midst of suffering. And in the Jewish mind, darkness was never outside of God's domain. It was the place where he worked in secret. It was in the darkness of the deep that the Spirit hovered before creation began. It was in the darkness of Egypt that he passed over and brought deliverance. And it was in the darkness of the tomb that the greatest victory of all was forged. You were told that blessing looks like increase, like favor, like promotion. But what if it also looks like pruning? What if it looks like being stripped of what you once leaned on so you can finally learn to lean on him? What if the unanswered prayer was a greater mercy than you realized? What if the closed door was the hand of God sparing you from a path that would have broken you? What if the dark night of the soul was the womb of transformation? Blessing is not always the thing that feels good. It is the thing that brings you closer to the heart of God. It is the hand that leads you through the fire, not around it. It is the rod and the staff that comfort you, not in the absence of the valley, but in the very shadow of death. He does not always remove the storm, but he reveals himself as the peace within it. In the night, the stars shine brighter. In the dark, your senses awaken. You begin to hear what was drowned out by noise. You begin to see with the eyes of faith. You begin to discover a God who is not only present in your celebration, but deeply near in your weeping. The God who dances with you at the wedding feast is the same God who kneels beside you in the garden of sorrow. There is a blessing in the wrestle. Jacob found it in the night when he refused to let go. He was left limping, but he walked away with a new name. There is a blessing in the exile. Israel found it in Babylon when their songs turned into prayers and their longings pointed homeward. There is a blessing in the silence. Zechariah found it in the holy hush that came before John the Baptist was born. These blessings are not the kind you ask for, but they are the kind that mark you. When you walk through darkness, do not assume God has abandoned you. Look closer. He may be hiding in the shadows, not to avoid you, but to reveal himself in a way you've never seen. He may be teaching you that his presence is not a feeling, but a truth. That his goodness is not limited to the light, but shines all the brighter in the hidden places. The mountain may testify of his power, but the valley reveals his heart. In your weakness, his strength is made perfect. In your hunger, you learn the taste of manna. In your emptiness, you become a vessel fit to be filled. These are the hidden blessings, the sacred gifts wrapped in mystery. They are not the blessings you boast about, but they are the ones that change you forever. There are treasures in the darkness, promises forged in the fire. Revelations born in silence. The light reveals what God can do, but the dark reveals who God is. And if you look with the eyes of trust, you will see that even the night carries his name. The blessings multiply when counted with a grateful heart. Gratitude is not just a polite response or a fleeting emotion. It is a spiritual posture, a lens through which heaven becomes visible in the mundane. When the heart begins to thank, the eyes begin to see. What once looked ordinary begins to shimmer with the sacred. What once felt insufficient becomes abundance in the hands of the grateful. Gratitude unlocks the hidden treasures embedded in every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. It transforms your life from a series of events into a testimony of divine presence. In the wilderness, the Israelites received manna daily, a tangible gift from God. But as their hearts grew cold and ungrateful, what was once a miracle became mundane to them. They no longer saw the wonder in what was before them. Their complaints blinded them to the very provision that sustained their lives. Gratitude doesn't change the substance, it changes the sight. Manna didn't stop falling because God stopped being faithful. It stopped feeling like a blessing because the people stopped giving thanks. When you cease to give thanks, you stop recognizing the hand of God in your life. But when you return to gratitude, even the smallest things begin to glow with his goodness. There is power in remembering. The Hebrew people were commanded again and again, Remember what the Lord has done. Build altars. Tell your children, write it on your doorposts, bind it to your hands. Why? Because gratitude is a weapon against forgetfulness, and forgetfulness is the seed of discontent. A heart that forgets becomes a heart that complains, but a heart that remembers becomes a fountain of praise. Gratitude turns memory into worship and history into testimony. Gratitude is not reserved for the moments of overflow. It is forged in the scarcity, in the waiting, in the pressing. It is easy to thank God for what you can see, but the grateful heart thanks Him even for what is yet unseen. It believes that what is coming is as sure as what has been. Faith and gratitude walk hand in hand. One sees what is not yet, and the other blesses what already is. And together, they open the floodgates of heaven's favor. The leper who returned to thank Yeshua was not only healed, he was made whole. There were 10, but only one turned back. What was the difference? Gratitude. 10 received, but only one honored the giver. And it was that one who received more than physical restoration. There is a deeper blessing reserved for the thankful. Healing is one level, but wholeness is another. God does not only respond to need, He responds to worship. He inhabits the praise of His people. Where there is thanksgiving, there is increase. Where there is gratitude, there is multiplication. In the feeding of the 5,000, Yeshua lifted the loaves and the fish, not complaining about their insufficiency, but giving thanks. And what was not enough became more than enough in His hands. Thanksgiving preceded the miracle. He did not wait until after the multiplication to bless the Father. He blessed him in the lack, and the lack bowed to the voice of gratitude. This is a principle of the kingdom. When you thank God for what little you have, you invite Him to do something greater with it. When you hold it up with thanks, He stretches it beyond the limits of your expectation. Gratitude is not passive. It is active, defiant against despair, resistant to bitterness. It is the choice to bless in the midst of brokenness, the decision to say a thank you when there's every reason to say a why. It breaks the cycle of fear, anxiety, and entitlement. It lifts the soul above circumstance and roots it in eternal truth. Gratitude says, "You are still here. You are still working." And in that acknowledgement, the blessings begin to surface, like treasures hidden beneath dust, like stars veiled by clouds that suddenly break open. Gratitude doesn't wait for the storm to pass. It praises in the rain. It worships with empty hands. It sings even when the night is long. It does not deny the hardship, but it declares the greater reality. That God is present, that God is faithful, that God is worthy. And when that truth is spoken, when the heart aligns with heaven in thanksgiving, the atmosphere shifts. The soul begins to perceive what the eyes could not. The blessings that were once hidden come into view. The miracles that once seemed distant draw near. To count your blessings is to awaken to the nearness of God. It is to tune your ears to the melody that has always been playing, to open your eyes to the beauty that has always surrounded you. The act of gratitude is not just about being thankful. It is about becoming aware. Aware of how deeply you are loved, how richly you are provided for, how intricately your life is woven with the threads of grace. You are a blessing meant to be poured out. You were not formed in the secret place merely to exist or to consume the goodness of God and store it within. You were created to be a vessel, to carry the fragrance of heaven into the broken corners of the world. The blessing upon your life was never meant to stop with you. It was meant to move through you, to flow like the oil that ran down Aaron's beard, from the head to the hem, touching everything in its path. What you have received, you are now called to release. Abraham was not only blessed to become great, he was blessed to become a blessing to all nations. That is the pattern of God. When He blesses, He assigns. When He pours out, He commissions. He does not waste His oil. When He anoints, He appoints. And you, as a child of covenant, carry within you something the world needs. You are not merely surviving. You are carrying divine treasure in an earthen vessel, and the cracks in your life only make the glory shine brighter. The river of blessing was never meant to become a stagnant pond. It is meant to flow, to move, to bring life wherever it goes. A river that does not flow becomes bitter. A believer who only receives but never gives becomes dry in soul. The measure to which you pour out is the measure to which you are filled again. The widow of Zarephath had only a handful of flour and a little oil, but when she poured it out for the prophet, her supply did not run dry. That is the mystery of kingdom math. What you give away multiplies. What you hoard decays. The blessing on your life is not only for your comfort, but for someone else's breakthrough. Your testimony is someone else's roadmap. Your healing is someone else's hope. Your deliverance is someone else's declaration. What God has done in you, He wants to do through you. The comfort you received in your midnight hour was not only to heal your heart, but to train your hands to comfort others. The revelation you carry is not for private insight alone. It is light meant to shine, seed meant to be scattered, bread meant to be broken. You were formed in the image of a giving God, and in that image you were most alive when you were giving. He gave His breath to form you, His blood to redeem you, His Spirit to fill you. And now you are called to reflect that same nature, to give without fear, to serve without seeking return, to love without limit. The hands of Jesus still touch the world, but now they move through yours. The voice of Jesus still speaks, but now it echoes through your words. The presence of Jesus still walks among the broken, but now He walks through your surrendered life. Salt does not preserve in the shaker. Light does not shine hidden under a basket. You are the salt of the earth, the light of the world. You are the city set on a hill, not for decoration, but for direction. The world is groping in darkness, and your life is a lamp. Every act of kindness, every word of truth, every sacrifice of love is a torch that pushes back the shadows. You were not saved to sit. You were saved to shine. The enemy fears the believer who understands that blessing is not a finish line, but a starting point. He fears the one who knows that to be filled is to be sent. He cannot stop the flow of God's blessing, but he can try to convince you to keep it to yourself. But you were never called to spiritual isolation. The early church did not grow because it hoarded blessing. It grew because it shared, it served, it gave. It lived as if every member was a vessel of glory. And so they turned the world upside down. You were not given influence just to build your platform. You were given influence to lift others higher. You were not given abundance just to increase your comfort. You were given abundance so you could meet the need, carry the burden, clothe the naked, feed the hungry, and proclaim the good news not just with words, but with action. The Spirit of the Lord is upon you not only to bless you, but to anoint you to preach, to heal, to restore, to proclaim liberty. You are not a bystander in the kingdom. You are an ambassador. You are not just a recipient. You are a channel of divine grace. Everything God gives, He gives with a purpose. Everything He blesses, He expects to bear fruit. You are a tree planted by streams of water, not only so you may flourish, but that others may find shade under your branches and eat from the fruit you bear. Your life is a message. Your story is a testimony. Your hands are instruments. Your voice is a trumpet. You are a blessing that heaven intends to pour out upon the earth. There is blessing in the mystery. There is blessing in the things you cannot explain, in the places where logic fails and answers are hidden beyond the veil. There are blessings wrapped in silence and delay, in the unanswered questions that linger long in the night. The ways of God are higher, the thoughts of God deeper, and within that depth lie treasures the surface will never reveal. We often pray for clarity, but what if God is offering something greater? What if He is offering communion, a walk by faith instead of sight, a journey of trust instead of certainty? The path of faith is not paved with constant revelation, but with steps taken in the unknown. Abraham was called to leave everything he knew and go to a land he had never seen. He did not receive a map. He received a promise, and the promise was enough, because when the promise comes from the mouth of the Eternal, it carries all the power needed to fulfill it. There was blessing in the obedience, even when the destination was unclear. There was blessing in the tent, in the wilderness, in the unanswered how, and the lingering when. The blessing was not only in the fulfillment, it was in the process, in the walking, in the stretching. There are blessings in the wilderness that cannot be found in the land of comfort. There are revelations in the fire that cannot be seen in the light of day. The mystery does not mean God is absent. It means He is inviting you to go deeper, to leave the shore of your understanding and walk into the waters of wonder, to trust that He is who He says He is, even when you cannot trace His hand. The blessing is not always clarity. It is the confidence that comes when your faith holds firm in the dark. The Israelites were led by a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. There was no roadmap, no fixed schedule, no calendar to follow. They moved when the cloud moved, and they stayed when it stood still. It was a lesson in surrender, in learning to trust not in the destination, but in the presence. The cloud was a mystery, but it was also the mercy of God. It was not a sign of uncertainty, It was a covering, a guide, a blessing wrapped in divine unpredictability. We are often tempted to define blessing by what we can understand. We want it to be neat, explainable, measurable, but the greatest blessings often defy human measurement. They come in the form of peace that surpasses understanding, joy that breaks through sorrow, strength that arises in weakness. These are not blessings that fit into spreadsheets or formulas. These are blessings that come from the heart of the infinite, blessings that rewrite the script of human reason. When God moves in mystery, He is not hiding from you. He is drawing you closer. When the answer tarries, it is not because He is indifferent. It is because He is working on levels you cannot yet see. His delays are not denials, and His silence is not absence. Even the hidden things are held within His sovereign hand. The mystery is not a void, it is a veil. And behind the veil is a glory greater than you imagined. Behind the veil is a God who is still writing, still shaping, still weaving all things together for your good. Job sat in ashes and asked questions that shook the soul. He did not receive answers. He received an encounter. And in that encounter, he found blessing beyond comprehension. God never explained the reasons for the suffering, but He revealed Himself. And that revelation changed everything. The blessing was not in the answer. It was in the unveiling of the one who holds all answers. When God reveals Himself in the midst of your confusion, that encounter becomes the blessing that anchors your soul. There are blessings that only come through surrender, through laying down your right to understand and lifting up your heart in worship. There are blessings hidden in the not yet, the is still waiting, the I don't know. These are sacred spaces where faith is refined like gold, where trust becomes more than a word, it becomes your very breath. In the mystery, God shapes saints. In the mystery, He writes stories that echo through eternity. The blessing of the mystery is that it keeps you close. It keeps you dependent. It draws you into intimacy with the one who knows the end from the beginning. You learn to rest not in what you know, but in who you know, You learn to worship not just for what He's done, but for who He is. You learn that the greatest blessing is not found in having all the answers. It's found in being held by the one who does. This blessing in the though it doesn't come dressed in ease or comfort, though it arrives with the sound of clashing swords and the pressure of pressing enemies, there is blessing hidden in the very conflict you are trying to escape. The battle is not proof that God has forsaken you. It is often the evidence that you are carrying something valuable. Thieves do not break into empty houses. The enemy does not attack what poses no threat. The very fact that you are in a fight is a sign that heaven has marked you for purpose, and hell has taken notice. In the battle, God forges warriors. He does not raise up children to sit idly in the fields. He raises sons and daughters to stand firm on the front lines. The blessing of the battle is that it reveals what is within you, and more than that, it reveals who is with you. David did not discover the power of his anointing in the quiet hills alone with his sheep. He discovered it when he stood before a giant. It was not the absence of the battle that proved God's hand. It was the presence of strength in the face of the impossible. The battle strips away illusion. It removes the masks, the false confidences, the empty declarations. In the heat of the trial, all pretense melts away, and you are left with raw faith. You come to know whether your trust was in your own strength or in the hand of the Almighty. The blessing is not always in the victory. It is in the transformation. The fire does not only consume, it refines. The struggle does not only threaten, it strengthens. There are dimensions of God's nature that can only be discovered under pressure. Jacob wrestled all night and came out limping, but blessed. He did not get what he expected. He did not walk away with perfect clarity or ease, but he walked away changed. The blessing came through the struggle, not apart from it. The blessing was born in the breaking. There are places in God you cannot reach until you have been pressed, wounded, and still refuse to let go. I will not let you go unless you bless me. That was the cry of one who understood that some blessings are not given to the passive, but to those who persevere. When Israel was cornered at the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind and the deep waters ahead, it seemed like defeat, but it was a setup for deliverance. The battle was never between Israel and Egypt. It was between the living God and the powers that defy him. God fights for his people. But sometimes he waits until there's no way out, so that you will know the victory was never by your might or your wisdom, but by his Spirit alone. There is blessing in reaching the end of yourself. because that's where the beginning of God's intervention begins. The battle teaches you to use your weapons. You may have the sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith, the armor of righteousness, but until the battle comes, you may not even realize you're armed. Conflict forces you to awaken. It calls you to stand. It drives you to prayer, to the Word, to worship as a weapon. It trains your hands for war and your fingers for battle, not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. You become dangerous to the enemy not when you avoid battle, but when you learn to wage it with authority. The storms rage, but in the midst of them, you learn his voice. The winds howl, but you hear him say, "A peace, be still." The enemy comes in like a flood, but the Spirit of the Lord lifts up a standard against him. The very resistance that was meant to break you becomes the platform where God displays his power. The fire that was meant to consume you becomes the altar where his presence falls. The prison becomes the birthplace of praise. The lion's den becomes a revelation of his protection. You begin to see the battle differently when you understand who stands with you. Elisha's servant trembled at the sight of enemy armies, but Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord." And when his eyes were opened, he saw chariots of fire surrounding the hills. You are never alone in the fight. Heaven fights with you. Angels are dispatched at your cry. The captain of the Lord's armies goes before you, and the battle, though fierce, becomes a place where intimacy is deepened and authority is born. The scars you carry become testimonies. The wounds you survived become stories of grace. The battles you didn't choose become the places of your deepest growth. God does not waste your struggle. He does not abandon you to the storm. He is shaping you in the heat, forging something eternal in the temporary fire. And when the dust settles, you are not only standing, you are stronger, wiser, more dependent on him. The battle did not destroy you. It revealed you. And in that revelation is a blessing that cannot be taken.